Hello. Good morning, everyone. How is everyone this morning? I am Tim Bricker. I'm the president and CEO at Mercy Gilbert Medical Center and Chandler Regional Medical Center, and I have the distinct honor of being your host and MC for this morning's event. So welcome. I'm just so thrilled to be here for Dr. K's. I learned this morning I can call Dr. Kishimoto Dr. K, for Dr. K's first State of the Schools presentation during her tenure with us as the superintendent. I have a few remarks. I'm not going to take long, although she offered that I could give a 50-minute talk this morning. I'm not going to do that. I want to start by just welcoming and thanking a few folks. I'm going to ask any members of the board for the schools, the school board, to stand and be recognized this morning. And I also know we have a number of elected officials. I'll ask members of the town council and the mayor to stand and be recognized. So just a couple things. You might wonder, why is the hospital administrator up here serving as the MC for the State of the Schools discussion in the town of Gilbert? I asked myself the same thing when Dr. K called me. Actually, I have a funny story about Dr. K's call to me, and I'll just start with that. So I used to live in the state of Oregon. I have a cell phone number that is an Oregon area code. And so Dr. Kishimoto called me a few days ago, and she said, I've been trying to reach you for a number of days, and I had a strange telephone call just yesterday from some random gentleman in Oregon who wondered why I was calling his cell phone and leaving him messages for Tim. So you almost had a random speaker from the state of Oregon here welcoming you this morning, but instead you have me. Why is the hospital administrator here leading a discussion or helping to MC a discussion of the schools? For several reasons. One, in addition to being a hospital administrator, I'm a dad. I'm a parent of teenage kids that live in the area. And so like many of you, personally, the state of the schools in our area is about the most important thing to me and to my family. So just on a personal note, I was honored to have the invitation to come and help lead this discussion today. Secondly, I, as a hospital administrator, oversee a really big business here in town and over in Chandler as well. We employ about 3,000 people, and we had a very interesting experience earlier this week. We have something that we call the Dignity Health Citizens Academy. We took about 40 of our employees and our doctors, nurses, techs, down to spend the day with the state legislature. We had lunch with a number of our elected officials, and we are healthcare people. As I said, doctors, nurses. We even had a vet with us because we have an animal laboratory down at St. Joseph's Hospital in Phoenix. And as we got into the lunch conversation with a number of our elected officials, of course, their questions for us were, what's going on in the healthcare industry? What do you care about? What's of interest to you? I will tell you that the only thing anybody in the party wanted to talk about was education. It was fascinating. We ended up having an hour-long discussion with the elected officials about education. And oh, by the way, as we got to the end, we tried to bring it back to healthcare. And it was a reflection of personal experiences as parents, as many of us are. But it was also, there was a significant discussion about recruitment of employees and doctors to the area. We are competing, of course, nationally, regionally, and globally for the workforce that we employ at the hospitals. And one of the questions that one of the legislators asked us was, what's the most significant issue you face as you try to hold on to doctors and recruit doctors into this area? And without missing a beat, two doctors that were with us said the education system. It's all about education and attracting and competing, not just on a local stage, but on a world stage, to bring in the best talent in this very high-tech, science-driven field that we work in. And so as the hospital administrator here, I will tell you that you might think we are most focused on replacing expensive clinical equipment and dealing with Obamacare and all that. But in reality, I would say one of our probably top 3 foundational issues to keeping up with the growth and the demands of healthcare in this community is the education system, and making sure that the education system is in such a place that we can attract people from around the country and around the world and also that we can prepare our kids for college readiness, for the workforce, so they come back here and want to continue to fill these great jobs that we have in the community. So I have a great personal interest and a great professional interest in the topics of conversation today, and I am very thankful for having the opportunity to be with you and to MC the event today. So with that, we will start the agenda with the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'm going to lead that. So if you would all stand up and face the flag to your left. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Before I introduce the young woman who's going to sing the Star Spangled Banner, I want to give one other recognition to Orcutt Winslow Architects and Mr. Visby Karanja. Visby, where are you? These folks provided the breakfast for us and refreshments for us. There you are. And I will also just note on a professional note that Orcutt Winslow Architects are the architects that designed the new 96-bed, 5-story patient tower over at Chandler Regional Medical Center and do a lot of the design work at Mercy Gilbert. They're terrific to work with, and I thank you for hosting this morning and for the great work you've done with us. So thank you. Now, it is really my pleasure to introduce to you Ms. Selena Wanji, who is a senior at Mesquite High School. She's going to lead us in the Star Spangled Banner, and this is all in preparation for her graduation and joining the U.S. Navy this summer. Selena?
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you. Wow. Thank you, Selena, and best of luck to you this summer. It is now my honor to welcome and introduce to you the mayor of the town of Gilbert. We have heard Mayor Lewis introduced on many occasions, so I won't bore you with a lot of the details, other than to say that Mayor Lewis and I have a lot in common. We are both very tall and handsome. We both have twins, and we are both extremely committed and interested in the state of the schools in Gilbert. So, Mayor Lewis, welcome.
On the program, it has the word welcome, and I think I will do that, but also it'll be a welcome and a thank you. I wanted to, in addition to our board and council, and thank them for being here, and our business leaders. Wonderful to have some of the finest hospital administrators in the country right here in our Gilbert area. There are some higher education leaders here, and that is such an important part of education across Gilbert. And so those higher education leaders who are here, could you just stand and also be recognized? This is teamwork, and we thank you. From the moment that wonderful baby is born at Mercy Gilbert Hospital until the baton gets passed several different places. Interesting, and the rest of the team and many of you I saw just a week ago Saturday, that Education Expo at Gilbert High School. That was a lot of fun. And so appreciated the enthusiasm for our community, and thank you for just shining brightly. Last night, representing our community, I attended something at the Flynn Foundation. Some of you are familiar with Flynn Foundation. They have an emphasis for Arizona on bioscience. And last night was a reception held at their facility for our state legislators. Not all 90 came, but a good many came. I would say in the 30 to 40 range. And there was a reception and short presentation. And then after the presentation, we were just kind of mingling and talking. And one of the individuals had 3 state legislators by them, and I came walking by, and she just pulled me in, and she said, "Oh, by the way, one of the greatest places in the state for bioscience is in Gilbert." And then she went on to talk about our event that we had last May, ASU Bio Meets Gilbert Bio. And what that was, and yes, we have jaguars and hawks and tigers and wildcats and Spartans at the higher level of our education team and all the other logos that we have at our elementary and junior highs. But she was talking about coyotes. And she went on to just rave about this place called Gilbert and Gilbert Education. And in addition to our biomed science programs and aerospace and engineering and technology and aerospace and our music programs and choirs and bands that win state competitions and get to go to London, England, this all comes together for wonderful education. And on a note from my heart, this is the 30th year that the Lewis family has been in Gilbert. And we came here because of education. And we have been so blessed. And to the administrators in the room, thank you for the leadership, but there's just something in the Lewis family. There are family heroes, and they are the teachers. And they're the teachers who have individually helped Lewis family members and hundreds of other families and students. And so we welcome you and thank you for all that you do for our community. It's a pleasure to be on this Team Gilbert together. And it's a pleasure to have wonderful leaders, including Dr. K and the administrators. But those heroes, they're right in the classroom every day, and you'll see them, and they're just doing everything they can to build Gilbert. And so on behalf of the town of Gilbert, we thank our local heroes for all you do. Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Lewis. Funny story about teachers. I had a theory. I think any of you that are parents will appreciate this. I had a philosophy as my kids were growing up, a way to save myself a lot of money in terms of college costs. I figured that I would teach them math incorrectly when they were young, so they wouldn't get into any good schools, and it would save myself a lot of money. And I found that somebody undermined me. I'm pretty certain it was those darn teachers and probably my wife that undermined me along the way. But I'm grateful for their undermining my efforts. It's my pleasure to introduce Lily Tram to you next. Lily is the president of the Gilbert Public Schools Governing Board. She's been on the board since 2008, and she is now serving in her second term as the president of the board. Puts in countless hours in service to the teachers, to the school system, to the students, and I want to thank Lily for her great service and welcome her here today to make a few comments. Lily?
Thank you, Mr. Bricker. I appreciate this opportunity, and good morning to everybody. This is great because this is our first annual State of the School address, and I'm really pleased to be here this morning to share this with you all. We have our board members with me here this morning, and I appreciate them being here. Gilbert Public Schools has many exciting things to share with everybody. We're a wonderful school district. Dr. Kishimoto is going to be sharing some of that with you here. The beginning of this academic year was a great, exciting new year for us to bring on a brand new superintendent to Gilbert Public Schools, Dr. Kishimoto. She stepped into her position in full steam. She's still going, and she's bringing her team along in that steam right behind her. So we are on fast track of getting our schools, not that we were an A district before, but we continue to be, and we want to make sure that we bring ourselves in competition with everyone else globally and nationally and here in the local level, and she's here for us for that. We appreciate that. With the board at the beginning of this academic year, we started off the year with the board, the superintendent, and Dr. Kishimoto's staff, where we worked together to develop a theory of action, our core beliefs, and our 3-year strategic plan, which we'll probably be sharing with you soon here this morning. And out of those items that were developed, 3 main initiatives came out of it. We have scholarships, innovation, and technology. Now, besides having all these great, exciting things going on here in the district and for our students, we do have a significant challenge ahead of us, which is our budget. And how will we go forward and move forward with these initiatives and these plans that we have in the future with the decrease in funding? We have a great community out there. We have wonderful students, parents, business partners, the town, the chamber, Gilbert Education Foundation, our higher ed partners out there, many organizations out there. And what Mary Lewis had mentioned was teamwork. And that's important here because that's what we're here for, our students and our schools. And we should all work together as a team to move in that direction. So thank you, everyone, for supporting our schools and Gilbert Public Schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Lily. Thank you so much. Now it's really my pleasure to introduce the highlight of today's event, Dr. Christina Kishimoto. Christina joined us about 7 months ago and joined us from Hartford, Connecticut, where she was a superintendent of public schools there. We are happy to have her. She is, talking about competing on a world stage. We were lucky to attract an individual of the caliber of Dr. Kishimoto. She's well-known nationwide as a sought-after speaker on topics related to school reform, and certainly had and has her work cut out for her here in Gilbert, but is coming in at a very, very exciting time in this community. We are thrilled that she's joined our community, and it's my pleasure to welcome Dr. Christina Kishimoto.
Good morning. This is a great time to be in Gilbert. Perhaps all of you have had a lot of history here say it's always a great time to be in Gilbert. But coming in with 7 months here in the community, my family and I have absolutely enjoyed being part of the community and have enjoyed being embraced as part of the Gilbert family. Because it really is a family feel to this community. It's just a whole-scale commitment, as you can see by the folks who are represented here from across fields. I'm coming today to you to kind of present to you the state of our schools here locally. And with me, those who are not speaking but are standing with me are my principals and my parent leaders who are here. And I ask you to please stand up so folks can also recognize you. So one of the interesting, I think, things about going into a new community is, looking first at the health of that community. And the health of the community, I like having Tim here emceeing, it's not best assessed by looking at the healthcare system. It's actually best assessed by looking at the quality of the education system. What's happening with children and youth? Are they able to go into a school in the morning and fully participate in the curriculum being offered at that school? And why that's an important indicator to look at first is that a young person cannot fully engage in the curriculum if they haven't had a healthy meal in the morning, if they don't have access to great quality health care, if they don't have the kind of supports that they need at home with a loving family who can provide those supports in terms of a value system and a support system to raise them in a healthy manner in the community, if they don't have a community that's wrapped around them, showing them support and love through a safe community, through a loving community, through great job prospects in the future, and so forth. So I always start by looking at the health of a community, by looking at the health of that local school system. And so what I'm going to talk to you about today is the health of our local school system, which we know is a partner in ensuring that all of your organizations as well are successful by ensuring that our young people are prepared to take on positions in your organization, to be politically and civically involved, to be prepared to grow up and become family, having their own families as well, to be able to access all the services that they need to be informed, educated, and involved citizens of this community. And so what I'm going to provide you with is an overview of the Gilbert Public Schools today. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the political landscape and the policy landscape that really impacts how we're doing our work in the school system today. I'm going to then talk about what we're strategically doing. Principals as the leaders in this district are leading in the strategic plan in terms of the implementation of this 3-year plan that many of you have heard about in various other forums. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about understanding our challenges. Lily Tram talked a little bit about some of the challenges that as a board and as a governance team, we are looking at in order to make sure that we remain an A district, but that we remain an A district at the national level, not just at the local level in terms of looking at Arizona standards. And I'm going to end by wrapping this up by talking about courageous leadership. Because as we talk about what is the state of our schools, we have some challenges in front of us, but we have some tremendous opportunities. And this is about leveraging all of the opportunities that are before us as a collective community to put before our children and youth in the Gilbert Public Schools in this Greater Valley area an opportunity that is going to set them forth to be able to compete locally, nationally, but also globally as these exciting opportunities are developing throughout this country. So let's just quickly go over where we are today as a school system. We are a $300 million school system. We have an enrollment of just over 37,000 students. And we have a staff that is quite significant. We have 3,642 employees in this district. And so we typically think about employees in the school system as principals and teachers, and perhaps the support staff as you come into a school who are greeting you. We think about our district office leaders as well. But we are talking about staff who are doing every kind of work, from work in transportation to food services to facilities and grounds management. We employ folks who really cut across many of your fields as well. We have 45 building sites, of which 41 are schools, and we manage on a daily basis 4.1 million square feet of building space on 876 acres. So we are a significant organization as part of the Gilbert community. Our demographics are listed here. We are a community that is majority white, with the second largest population being Hispanics at 14%. And you can see the demographic data there. Our smallest ethnic group are Native Americans at 1%. That's just over 300 Native American students that we have here. And I'm so excited because the town of Gilbert and the team here at Town Hall are working with the district around providing some added services to our Native American population. We are a community that embraces and looks at all of our subgroup populations to ensure that everyone is successful in our school system. And as I share some data around our graduation rate, our retention rate, our academic data, you're going to see that we are a community that truly is paying attention to every subgroup of students to make sure that our students are successful. 7.7% of our residents are 65 years of age or older. And what this really tells us is that the Gilbert community has a very healthy spread of age groups and generations. And this really provides this great opportunity for the older generation to work with our younger generation. So we have lots of partnerships that bring in our senior community into the schools to share of their stories, their experiences, because they are a fantastic resource to us as well. We are a community of healthy means. On average, 82,000 mean household income in our community. And so we have some means in this community to provide supports to our schools. And we see that in the contributions to our schools that go well beyond our tax system in terms of what families are willing to provide to schools for local programming. 5.9% of residents are at the poverty level. This relatively low percentage, when we look at the national norm, allows us to really look at individual students and support them through our schools to ensure that their socioeconomic standing at this time is not necessarily a predictor of the socioeconomic standing in the future, but rather through education, through quality health care, through safe communities, through a community that embraces and supports our children and youth, that they have the same opportunities as a child that's coming from a higher socioeconomic family at this point in time. Our Gilbert Public Schools, or our organization, is the largest employer in the town of Gilbert. And when we talk about the future of Gilbert Public Schools, we need to talk about the future of Gilbert Public Schools, not just in education, but as an organization that is a major employer in this community. We have lots of awards and recognitions. I cannot possibly spend enough time on this. And I'm just going to give you some highlights. There's some highlights listed here, but I do want to mention one that's not here. We are recognized as a school system as having a high-quality special education program for our special education students. And so the state of Arizona has recognized us for those services. We have 3 A-plus schools. From the Arizona Education Foundation, they're listed there. Highland High has a National High School Girls Basketball Coach of the Year who was inducted in the Arizona Hall of Fame. It just shows that not only academically are we a top-tier district, but we are also paying close attention as a community to providing quality programming in music, in arts, in athletics, in after-school programming, in opportunities for students to be involved with capstone projects and internship programs and so forth. Here are some other recognitions. We have teachers who are also top-tier teachers, and we are so excited about that, which means that as we are looking at some of the challenges that we are facing as an organization, that we've got to pay very close attention to our retention efforts, which is why one of the major initiatives that we have this year has been converting our traditional HR department to a talent management department, really paying attention to recruitment and retention of top-tier teachers and staff members at every level to do this work. One of the things that the Gilbert Public Schools has done over the years through the leadership of the board is ensure that we are right-sizing each year, making sure that we have a staffing model that makes sense for our budget and working within budget, but at the same time ensuring that as you right-size, you don't lose your top-tier capacity to do this work. And I'm going to highlight the facilities department under Stan Peterson's leadership, because one of the things that has happened over the past few years is that we have, and the board has made a tough decision to decrease some FTEs in that area. And yet, with the decrease in FTEs or positions in that area, the quality of maintenance of our buildings and cleanliness on a daily basis is among the best in the state. So our staff step up every time, even under tough conditions, and they're committed to this community. Also, before I move on, the other thing is Title I schools, where we have a larger percentage of students who are in the lowest socioeconomic level are recognized among the top schools in the state as well, which says that we are ensuring that we are providing top access to quality education for all of our students. So if we pull the lens back a bit and just look at the policy landscape that we're working under, we like to look at what's happening in terms of where Arizona ranks nationally with other states, and that's what the NAEP scores provide us. We also like to see how the United States is doing in terms of its ranking across countries globally to see where we are ranking. We know we have an an emphasis on the STEM areas, or an added emphasis on the STEM areas, really paying attention to literacy levels, to math and science levels, and to access to college and career success in terms of our data. But we want to make sure that we have a look at our data, not just here locally, but also how are we doing if we compare our students to students nationally and globally. Can our students leave here in Gilbert, from the Gilbert Public Schools, with a Gilbert Public Schools diploma, and that diploma represent a level of competitiveness that opens doors for them no matter where they go globally? That's what we want. We want that diploma to represent that. Access and teacher quality are the two national agendas that are long-standing agendas. And one of the things that's interesting is you watch the dialogue nationally, including new proposals from President Obama, is many of the conversations that are happening now sound like conversations that happened in 1984 when the Nation at Risk report was released. And the United States said, you know, we have some concerns about access and equal access and quality access, and especially access to high quality curriculum in the science and math areas. And some of those conversations are being repeated now. The other repeated policy conversation happening here in the state and nationally is whether kindergarten should be a standard part of a K-12 curriculum. We are repeating a conversation that started back in '84 as a crisis in this country, and now saying we may not have funding for kindergarten. Yet all of the research, almost 4 decades of research at this point, shows that a child that goes to a quality kindergarten program and has some access to pre-K comes into first grade with almost 20,000 vocabulary words more than a child that does not have access to a full-day K program. And so while the research is absolutely undisputed, we're still having a policy conversation around access to early literacy and early childhood. The other matter that we need to watch as a community is the reauthorization of ESEA. And I raise these national policy issues because in 2 years, when we're going through the presidential elections, one of the major agenda items and deliverables for the next president of the United States is going to be the reauthorization of the major funds, federal funds going into education. That's the Elementary and Secondary Education Act reauthorization. First, created in 1964, reauthorized most recently in 2002. We all have different opinions about No Child Left Behind. It brought in a decade or more of kind of overemphasis on testing that I think across the board we're not happy with. At the same time, it did shine a light on subgroups of students, and it said there is no child that's expendable. And so it did bring a level of conversation that I think was valuable on the policy front. Public education funding and choice looks different no matter which state you go into. What choice means in Arizona is very different from what choice means in Colorado. It means something different for what it looks like on the East Coast when you look at North Carolina and what's happening in Connecticut, Massachusetts. There are different perspectives on this issue of choice. Choice in some states means the local public education system, magnet programs, privates, charters. In other states, it's looked at as the charters. In other states, there's a whole magnet school movement. And so there are various definitions on it, but no matter what the definition is of a state, the purpose of choice is to really acknowledge that parents want to be much more empowered around where their child is receiving their education. My goal and the goal of my team that stands with me is that we want the Gilbert Public Schools to be the first district of choice for every family living here in Gilbert. If we look at PISA data over time, this is the global report card. It looks at how the United States is performing, how our kids in K-12 are performing compared to K-12 students in other countries. And we see over time in terms of math scores, in terms of math scores that we have not been as competitive with other countries, but in reading and science we have been. What's been interesting is since No Child Left Behind, and especially in the last 5 years, is that the United States as a country is starting to lose ground in competitiveness again. We had gained in competitiveness 2 decades ago. We started to lose ground in the last 5 years, and there are reasons for that. One of the driving reasons is that other countries have started to really look at the PISA results and compare themselves and say, what do we need to do to improve the quality of our education? And there's a couple of things they've done. One is they have not paid attention to testing the way we have, the overemphasis on testing, although they do use assessments. But they've invested heavily on teacher education, teacher access, teacher training. They've invested heavily on ensuring that the profession of teaching is a valued profession in the community. If you compare that to what's happened here in the last 10 years, we have been bashing teachers in this country, blaming them for some of these results, while other countries have stepped back and said, okay, we're getting these results because as a country, we need to invest differently in our teacher preparation programs. A very different approach and a different policy conversation. If you compare just in a 3-year period, the United States has dropped in ranking in math, reading, and science at the global level. And so if you look at science literacy, where we had moved up in ranking from about 2000 to 2012 to the ranking of 28th, in just a 3-year period, we've dropped in ranking. I'm sorry, I was looking at the wrong one. In math, we have dropped in ranking from 36 down to 25. And I'm sorry, from 25 down to 36. And this is out of about 40 countries that are in this. In the PISA ranking, as you look at these results as well, you can see all the countries listed here that in a 3-year period have surpassed us in performance. So in math, these are the countries that have surpassed us in performance. And the most interesting country to watch over this 3-year period is Vietnam, who was ranked very low and has been able to raise their ranking in math, in reading, and in science during this time period, with a real emphasis on teacher quality and teacher education. If you look at NAEP results, that's our national report card. That allows us to compare Arizona to the performance of students in other states across this country. If you look at how we're performing as a state, in mathematics, Arizona is ranked 34th out of 40 states. I'm sorry, out of 50 states. In grade 8 mathematics, 40 out of 50 states. In reading, we are ranked 46th in grade 4 and 45th in grade 5 out of 50. So we are at the bottom 10 in terms of ranking, in terms of state performance. So when we look at the quality of education in Gilbert Public Schools, one of the things that I encourage our staff to do is to keep looking at not just local standards, but what are the national standards? Where are our students ranking nationally? And are we competitive? In terms of setting a course for Gilbert Public Schools, Lily Tram opened up with this. We have a new superintendent. I hope you had a chance to meet her. I heard she's pretty cool. We have a new cabinet. Many of them are sitting here in the front. And we have a board that has engaged for the past 7 months in really revisiting their role as a governance team around setting a policy agenda locally that supports high-quality, continued high-quality education, and really set a course of action for that work. We've adopted one focus goal, and the goal is focused on 3 high-leverage strategies, looking at students as scholars in terms of readiness for college, innovation, and technology as being the other 2 high-leverage strategies. And we've adopted a 3-year strategic operating plan to guide our work and to be very specific about what it takes to continue to be competitive. And so scholarship is really about looking at our students as scholars and looking at them as young people that we need to prepare to be competitive for the higher ed institutions who are represented here and across the nation, but also competitive to be prepared to go into your businesses and be the first to be hired. If we look at the performance of the school district, we have 31 A-rated schools, and that's exciting. The performance of our schools is at a very high level. We have 9 B-rated schools. We have no C-rated schools this year. And we are within the top 10 districts in Arizona. My goal is that I can stand here before you and say, we are within the top 10 districts in the United States, because we have the conditions for that already in place. We have parent leaders who are highly engaged. They're not just showing up to meetings and showing up for PTO events. They're actually leading through the PTOs and other venues. We have a business and industry community that is always at the table with us. We have government leaders who are always willing to be at the table with us, looking at the quality of education here. If we look at reading performance in the school district, we see that we have outperformed the average performance in the state of Arizona at every grade level over the past 3 years. And so we are really standing out in terms of reading and literacy opportunities in the Gilbert Public Schools. In writing, it is the same way as well. We have very strong showings. In every tested area, we outperformed students in the state of Arizona. That's what's driving this ranking among the top 10. And that is an entry point, a cornerstone in terms of success in higher ed. Our higher ed institutions are always saying we need students to be great writers. They need to be able to analyze. They need to be able to critically think. And that's what we're producing. In math, we have also continued to outperform students in the state in terms of our Gilbert Public Schools. And in science, we've been able to outperform students in the state, although when you look at our performance at the high school level, the state has really seen a tremendous jump this past year in terms of science performance, and we have not. And so that's an area where we continue to look at our curriculum and to look at opportunities that students have to be engaged in those STEM areas in terms of applying their science learning. And that's an area of focus for us. Graduation rates, we have a greater graduation rate than the state of Arizona. If you look individually by school, anywhere from 10 to 20 percentage points higher than the average in the state of Arizona. So we have a very strong graduation rate. We are moving students through high school successfully and into college. Our dropout rate is also a model. We are ensuring that students, if they need to stay another year, if they need additional support, if they need additional time, if they need an alternative school to catch up on credits, we are providing that here in the Gilbert Public Schools. And our dropout rates are very low, for the most part, under 1% per school. When we look at our AP exams, advanced placement exams, which provide students with credits during their high school experience that they can take to college, if they pass that exam especially with a 4 or 5 out of a 5-point scale, we see a trend up, a real emphasis. There's been a project called Project Opening Doors nationally that has increased the number of students taking AP courses. We see a trending up in Arizona. We see a very flat performance level and enrollment level in the Gilbert Public Schools. This is another area of emphasis that we're looking at. We should have more students taking AP classes and taking advantage of that early college opportunity to take credits with them. It allows them to start college in more advanced courses rather than taking entry-level courses. And we know our students do that in high school already. They pack their schedules to try to graduate early, to take advanced courses. We should be seeing that as well in terms of entry into college through the AP system. So that's an area of focus for us. In terms of innovation, this is a real focus for us. This is a time period where we're really at a crossroads at looking at innovation opportunities in our schools. And our teachers and our principals are anxious to jump in and implement some new ideas in terms of engagement for students, but also in terms of designs. And so one of the concepts we are talking about is the portfolio district design. A portfolio district is a district where schools provide various choice options within its own district. It allows us to look at what parents and students are looking at when they're leaving our district and taking advantage of other choice opportunities in the community to say we can provide those same options here as part of the Gilbert Public Schools. Traditionally, we have found school districts unwilling to really change from a traditional comprehensive model. We have had at least a decade of experience saying that that traditional model is not what is driving the interests of parents and students today. They are actively engaging in choice opportunities outside of their local districts. And so when we look at competition, we used that word earlier, we want to be competitive in the education market. I think that is okay to have public school systems being competitive. But one of the things that what's driving that competition for us is that we want to be responsive to what our kids are telling us they're interested in. We want to be responsive to what business and industry is saying about the kind of prepared workforce that they need. We want to be responsive to what higher ed is telling us about the readiness of our students to be able to take those higher level courses. So competitiveness is really about being responsive to this community. We have various models in the school system already that really start to provide a foundation for these choice models, this portfolio concept. And the idea is to grow this, not to do this overnight, but really to examine what the community is looking for. We have Montessori schools in this community. There's no reason why we can't have a public Montessori school as part of our school system. We have a growing interest in the STEM areas, aerospace, biohealth, engineering. We have an interest in business academy, business and finance academy. There is no reason that we cannot design high schools and academies within our high schools that provide students those opportunities to engage in those kind of academies here as part of our public school system. So it's really about reframing our mind about what it means to be a public education system. Technology is key to this work. We have been looking at how we keep pace with what business and industry is doing in terms of use of technology in the field. Our students should be ready to use technology in the way that it's being used in an applied way out in the workplace. And so our education system should be reflecting that use of technology. And so just recently, the board approved a rollout of a one-to-one program of Chromebooks for our 7th and 8th graders. In addition to that, we have Chromebook carts that are going to elementary schools. We have a refresh of some computers at the high school level. We have got to continue to invest in the kind of technology that we want our students exposed to. And this is really a first step because there are ways in which we can use advanced technologies at a high school level that we are just touching upon, and we can do that by being partnered up with you. Now, let's just talk briefly about understanding our challenge. There are 4 areas of challenge that we continue to talk about this year. One is enrollment. And decreases in enrollment. And the decrease in enrollment is not being driven by a decrease in school-age children in this community. It's being generated by an increase in choice options and the need for this district to be competitive. When you have an A-level district of this size, with this scope of programming, we should be the district of first choice for most families. That does not mean that families will not look at other choice options. Choice is good. We want our parents to be empowered, but we've got to think differently about the fact that our families are not automatically coming into the school system anymore. We've got to sell ourselves. We've got to talk about the great programming that's happening. When we had our school expo, the mayor was there, our principals were there, we had lots of parents and teachers there as well. You know, parents were coming in and we're walking through the hallway, the board members were there as well to hear a message from parents saying, I didn't realize we had all these programs in our district. But the offerings of your local school community and your local school system should not be a secret. This should be the pride and joy of this community. We should all be talking about it and selling it. The other is funding. Decreased funding because of loss of enrollment, but also because of flat funding from the state, and because we have to start looking at competitive grants in a different way that we have not been doing. The third one is salary schedules. We have not been keeping up with a competitive salary schedule for our employees, which means that when we talk about talent retention, they're going to be recruited away from us, not because they don't think that they'll Gilbert Public Schools is a great place to be, but because they have to support a family. And just a few miles down the road, they're going to get a higher salary and a better benefits package. And so this is an important part. One of the things we don't like to do in education is that we don't like to talk about the business side of the house. Business and education, we don't like to mix those two words. And the fact is, when you think about the fact that we're over $300 million, I wish it was 400, $300 million school system, we are a significant organization with this whole business and operational side of the house that has to run and function extremely well in order for principals and teachers to focus on the quality of education. These things are not exclusive. And so as the board looks at policies, they're looking at both the educational quality side, but they're also looking at that business side of the house. If you look at average daily membership for the past 5 years, we've had a decrease in enrollment. A decrease in enrollment means that we're still running the same number of schools with less funding. And so we've got to be more competitive. When you look at our budget history, you can see that from 2009 to the current year, we've moved from $28 million in bond funds to none. We've had a decrease in capital outlay override as we're sunsetting an override in terms of our M&O, or management and operation override, as well as our capital override. State funding has been slightly decreasing or kept flat. And so you can see at the capital level, we have a significant hit that we're taking in 2015-16 as we're preparing a budget in the next few months that the boards and I are going to have to grapple with in terms of how we make these decisions. When you look at the operation budget, you can also see that we have about $8 million in decreased funds from this year to next year. And there are tough decisions that have to be made around that. If you take the decreased funds of $8 million in operation, and you look at the fact that we have no funds available for true capital improvement next year, and we have 45 buildings to maintain, we're talking about a real need of $10 to $12 million in this district for next year, a gap that we've got to figure out a mitigation strategy that does not impact the quality of our programs. Once you start closing down programs, the cost of reopening a program, if you figure out the funding several years down the road, it's going to be triple, quadruple the cost because you've got to rebuild all of your capacity. And you've got to figure out in a closed down program what you're doing with equipment, with facilities. And you've also got to deal with the fact that you're losing capacity. You don't get to pick and choose necessarily which teachers and leaders and staff members end up being recruited out of your district. And so maintenance of capacity in our district and our programs is a key focus for this board, and we'll continue to have public conversation over the next few months. You can see some of the impacts over time. We've had a decrease in state funding or funding that's been frozen. We have an override that is at the tail end, and we've expended those funds. We've done some great things with that override, but what we have in the state of Arizona is a very different funding model than we see in many states. There is, in many ways, an expectation that there's a local tax base that is supporting the per pupil funding for the management of a school district in a way that you don't see in other states where that's built into that state tax system. So we have override process here. That's a piece that this community is going to be having lots of conversations about in terms of either downsizing or right-sizing based on the budget, which is a reduced budget, or making some decisions about how to fund and support the school district. The state's also not fully funding transportation, special ed, and English language learner programs. It continues to decrease its funding in those areas. What that means is that the per pupil allocation for all students gets tapped into in order to continue to provide those services which are mandated. We have 5 strategies that are guiding our work. So despite the challenges that we have, we need to continue to be strategic. There's no more important time to have a forward vision and to be strategic than when your funding is tight. You've got to know where your emphasis and focus is on. And so the board has had 7 months working together around a strong policy and leadership agenda. They've developed a theory of action. They've developed core beliefs and commitments. They're looking at all of the policies that allow us to be innovative as a district and revamping those. In terms of teaching and learning, we're looking at adopting a web-based curriculum platform that allows us to share curriculum on a web-based platform across schools, but also to provide access to our parents to the curriculums being offered in schools. So we're excited about that. We're also looking at opening up 10 to 12 additional pre-K classrooms next year. The access point for schools and the access point for competitiveness is to get the families in at the pre-K level. And so we have a self-funded system. It's a fee-based program. It works well in several of our schools. We're going to expand that. Ideally, we should have a pre-K program in every elementary school in this district. The third strategy is school design and innovation. Our principals are going to be engaged in looking at expanding some of the choice opportunities they already have and adding to those choice opportunities, and we're excited about that. Community engagement, we had a school and Technology Expo recently. It was well attended. We're excited about showcasing who we are. I'll be working with the mayor to put this at the farmers market next year. We're going to put it out publicly. We want our community to come by and see everything that's offered. We also had a wellness fair. We were excited about it. We had 600, just over 600 employees who came out to really understand their benefits package and ways in which they can tap into that benefits package proactively to support the health of their families, of themselves and their families. The other community engagement pieces that we have that I thank you for is that we started a superintendent's business breakfast. The Gilbert Education Foundation has been key to organizing that, and I'm thrilled to see the expansion of the foundation's partnership with us. They're also tomorrow rolling out teacher grants that they're going to be announcing, once again supporting our teachers with grants at the school level for innovation. Finally, systems alignment. We are upgrading our financial and staffing system. It is a system that's 2 decades old. We have got to, as a district of this size, keep up to date with the systems and the business side of the house to support our work. So what is the state of our schools? I would say we're at a crossroads. We are a high-performing, high-quality, well-resourced, parent-engaged district. We have great staff, we have great leaders, we have great capacity, and we have great partners at the table. Where we are right now is at a crossroads in terms of saying, what is the next decade of work? How do we innovate to remain a top-tier district? And how do we change our perspective from being the top 10 in the state to being the top 10 in the nation? We have the capacity to do so, and that is what's so exciting. We need to shift our mindset to say that's where we're headed and that's where we want to be. And so we need a lot of courageous leadership now in terms of this next level of work. We want to make sure that we have a continuous improvement strategy. We want students always to be first in decisions, and we see that with the work that the board has been engaged in this year with its new policy agenda. We want to model excellence in teaching and learning. We want to empower parents and partners. We want them at the table at every decision level. And we want to make sure that for all of you as decision makers locally, as local government, that we're contributing to this community at all levels and that we're having these conversations. The other critical piece, which is why I started with the policy conversation, is that we should be a voice in the state, but also nationally in terms of the education policy agenda. We have capacity to do that. We have a lot to say about quality schooling, and we need to have a voice there in terms of that work. We also need to advocate for public school funds and be clear about the fact that we are very frugal and very business savvy in how we're applying our funds currently. But they are not sufficient and they're falling short. And we've got to either make some decisions to right size according to those funds, or we've got to advocate for additional funds. And now is the time to be part of the policy conversation with the governor and the legislature in terms of what's being proposed. And finally, I'm going to just emphasize, we have a great ability to establish a national presence in this country. We are a model district that's very quiet. And the mayor talks about the standing of Gilbert and the accolades that Gilbert has received as being a safe and welcoming and thriving business community nationally and being recognized nationally. Our school system should also be receiving national rankings that puts us on the map, and we have that opportunity to do so. With that, I will close, turn it over to Tim, and I thank everyone for your work and attention.
Thank you, Dr. Kishimoto. What a wonderful presentation. There were a number of things that caught my attention in the presentation, and the last was the notion that the state of the schools is such that we are at a crossroads. It's really an interesting time in the state of the public schools here. I will tell you, I feel much more confident having Dr. Kishimoto in the leadership role and the fact that we will make our way through this crossroads in a very successful fashion. Three things I wanted to call out that really had me inspired from what Dr. K said. The first was this notion that education is part of the health of a community. We are, as I noted earlier, I'm in the hospital business. We're in the healthcare business. Typically, though, what we do is we take care of people when they are injured or they're sick. Part of the mission of Dignity Health is to partner with community organizations to improve the health of the community. And most often that really has nothing to do with healthcare. It has to do with things like education. So we could not agree more that education is foundational to the health and wellness of our community. That's really why I'm here and why we continue to partner with other organizations and with the school district to help improve the health of this community through things like strong education program and systems. Secondly, I love this emphasis on national and global competitiveness. I love that. The idea that when you leave the Gilbert Public Schools with a diploma, it's essentially a ticket to compete nationally and globally. That is absolutely true. It's what we want for all of our children. From a business perspective here, I also see that philosophy as an attractor for businesses to come to Gilbert and for families to settle here. It will help us create the jobs and the economic development that we strive for to continue to grow and evolve as a community. I think that philosophy is right on, and I'm very inspired by it. And lastly, the notion of partnerships. Dr. Kishimoto, the board, the parents, the teachers can't do this alone. They need us. They need all of us as parents to partner with them, to be engaged, to be involved. They need us as the business community to be involved, to be engaged. And so the last slide here that speaks to a call for action, I would just leave you with that. I would encourage all of you to commit to staying engaged. We are a very engaged community with the school system. Stay that way. Up your game a little bit. As a parent, as a community member, find ways to be involved and to be supportive of all of the good things that Dr. Kishimoto talked about today. If you're in business, find ways to partner and to be engaged. We will find our way through this crossroads and be at a much better place the more we work together to improve the state of our school system here. So I will leave you with that. I wish you all a great day. Dr. Kishimoto, thank you so much for a great discussion this morning. Thank you all for being here. Have a great day and rest of the week. Thank you.